Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Journey to Becoming a Head Coach. As always, I am your host, Jeff Freeman. Today we're going to go over some ISO. And one second, I'll grab my good markers. We're going to go over some ISO. And for those of you, it's an isolation theory. It's, isolating on a backer, preferably the middle backer. And this one's kind of near and dear to my heart. It was our bread and butter play when I was in high school. And we ran it, 20 ISO, 21 ISO, 22 ISO. That's what we did. The two back, we were in a two formation. We were giving it to the two back, and we were leading up on the Mike linebacker. And in those days, this was basically our formation. Old school X, Y, Z out here, and they had their. We primarily played even front teams for the most part. Every now and again, we got an odd front team, but for the most part, this was the front that we would get, usually some cover 2 premise out of it. We were a run-heavy team. That's just what we were. So sometimes we would get some cover 3, but for the most part, that was the base we got. And depending on what this guy was, we'd either double here or we'd double here. The nose and the center would always double team. Backside backer. 3-tech would be one-on-one, unless, of course, he was a bad son of a gun. Then we would double team, and the Y would have to just make sure the end doesn't get inside. But preferably, we liked something like that. Fullback would just lead up on the Mike backer. Tailback would follow him up the gut. This backside tackle would either make sure he didn't go, and then he would help on the will. And then these guys are stock blocking. Old school ISO theory, loved it. I still love it to this day. But now, of course, the game has changed, so now you got to adjust with the times. So that was the basic ISO theory that I grew up knowing and loving. And, again, to this day, I'm always trying to figure out a way to run ISO in my playbook to some degree. Now you got QB ISOs, you got spread versions of ISOs, there's all kinds of things. So kind of want to give you just a take on some things that I'm thinking about and some things that I'm tweaking with, especially out of our formations, since we're going more of a pistol option look. As far as our pistol game, this is pretty much our formation. This is our base formation, so we tend to predicate things on field and boundary for us. For those of you that watched some of my earlier videos, you would know that's pretty much how we predicate things. So, but if we're in the middle of the field, we'll just kind of base it as it is for right now. So we would go E and Z. We would have our H and our X. So this would be our base formation. Now, depending on what the defense does, I'll show it out of an even front, odd front at the same time. So, like, my thought process is on this, in this front, we're pretty much going to run, in my head, QB ISO. Just because, obviously, based out of this front, we don't have a true fullback back here. We could motion one of these guys in, we could shift them in, or we could line up in that formation. So we could line up in something like this, or like this, and we can run our ISO game out of that. Now, the other thing I'm thinking about as well is the one thing that obviously wasn't big, and for those of you that don't know, or how old I am, I'm 34, so at the point when we were running ISO, it was, early 2000s. So the RPO game wasn't even there yet, wasn't even thought of. It was play action. So, we would fake a sweep, and it would be a QB boot, and we would either pass it or run it. So we ran a lot of bootlegs rather than RPOs, a lot more play action style. We had 22 ISO pass where we go to the tight end, stuff like that. So, that was more of what we predicated everything on. But now with the RPO game, the nice thing about that is, for example, out of this front, even if it's a 4-3, give you that corner look. Let's just say they line up, for lack of an argument, they're in this. Sam backer splitting. You got your safeties up here in a cover 2 look. Well, now you can predicate things and you can have an RPO game. So if this corner's playing off and that safety's back there because they're in a cover 2 look, catch it and throw. Run the slant. Don't even bother running the ISO theory if you have your H back here. Don't even bother. Just run it, because now you got big on big here. You got a double team to the backside, making sure he's not there, leading up on the mic still, handing it off. And you can even still run a read game out of that if you really wanted to. If you really wanted to get crazy with it. Another thought I'd had in my head as far as I'm playing around with it and playing with rules and things of that nature, you could double team here, force that double, and if he pinches hard, it turns into more of like the old little outside veer game, where if he comes down hard inside, he's leading up, he can pull it and go. Or you can still block him and run a true ISO theory if you wanted to. So things that I'm playing with, things you can run out of. And again, I'm big on ISO. I like ISO theories. I think it gives us another avenue to our offense, especially since, inside zone, outside zone, veer, things that give us double teams, things that give us advantages. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So just basics, the basic QB ISO look for this. I mean, if you're running like out of our normal look, let's just say we're running QB ISO, then obviously, we're going to go big on big. And again, if you got the people to be able to do it, again, take them where they want to go, get them outside, you get the double team, you're here, tailback's going to lead up on the mic, QB 1001, and then just follow them up the hole. And again, you can have the RPO game out of this still, because you can run just a simple slant bubble, because now out of this, that safety has to make a decision, or they got to make a decision. Either he's got to kind of come down if they're still in that cover 2 look, they're still in that cover 2, or if they're going to go cover 3, he's going to back off, and then they'll probably, again, bring him down into the box, and now you got a cover 3 look. So now, predicated on where he's lined up, is he cheating inside and you can get the bubble, or is he cheating outside so far that you can get the slant? So again, kind of predicating on what he's doing, you have a pre-snap read before you even run QB ISO, depending on what kind of QB you have. Now, us, personnel-wise, I don't know if we're going to have that QB. Now, granted, just to get 3 or 4 yards, yeah, we might have him. But personnel-wise, I mean, we'll have to play that game. So that's, QB ISO, for, in my opinion, the easiest way to run it, where you have your tailback lead up on the Mike linebacker. Now, as far as what we have been doing, we've been running split back fly for, we ran it all year last year. So what I'm thinking and what I'm looking at for us is a really nice, easy way. We'll bring the H, because the H is supposed to be like our tight end type style of guy, and could be a tight end style of guy. Again, another way you can run it, if you want to bring motion, if you want to bring shifts into it, something as I'm thinking about and playing with, is to motion the H in and have him lead up the hole. So, you got that Sam out here. If they're in a 4-3, then you might have that Mike linebacker or that the safety rolled up, or at least he's over the top, and that free safety's over here. You got your corners. So, oops, trying to make it easy for you guys to see who's the defense and who's the offense here. So, out of this look, what my thought is, bring the H across, and then right as he gets here, turns and faces, you still get that double team, backside, to the backside will, and now you get to really see as a pre-snap read, if he rotates over the top and it's cover 2, now you really have that RPO, and if he doesn't rotate and he sits, well, you don't have the slant, but now you got the H leading right up the gut, and you can still run the ISO game. And again, you can still have the RPO on this side, but I feel like if we're going to run motion away, I'd rather read this side, because that's going to give you the most movement. Over here, they're pretty much static. So I'd rather him just go and lead up and block and cut that off now, so that way we can run our ISO game right up the gut. Now, of course, pre-snap read, again, we can change it week to week. If you want to keep the RPO going, you could do the same thing on this side. If that Sam is cheating, then obviously, yeah, run your bubble game if you wanted, or run, a slant and out game out of that, where literally he's running just a little arc route and we got a slant on that side. And then as they see the ball handed off, obviously he could continue to go and try and block the Sam, and then he could pull up and try to block the corner. That's something you can do. That's something I'm playing with. And in my idea would work really well if you want to run the RPO game, because I feel like if you're able to kind of read left to right on both sides, if you go, okay, well, if this side's doing this, and on the snap of the ball he's moving, force that read. If you have motion, it's a little bit difficult, in my opinion, to have your quarterback read the motion, then quickly look over here, and then run that. Try to make it simple, as easy as possible. So if you have motion, have him read one side of the field, And if there's a movement by that safety and you know your X is running that slant, you can just catch it and throw it, and now you're getting 4 yards and you're moving on to the next play. If you don't have a motion, say you're running true QB ISO, like we were just talking about, then now you can have that read where it's a lot easier, where if that free safety is dropped down and that strong safety is more in the middle, and this Sam backer's playing games, so he looks over here, and that slant and out combo, really easy combination rather than doing bubble all the time. If you want to just do a quick slant and out combination, if that's kind of taken up because these two aren't really giving a nice read, but this Sam backer is cheating like a son of a gun right outside to the point where he might even be blitzing, maybe you're running slanting out backside, maybe you're running true bubble on the wide side, because for us this would be the wide side of the field, because again, most of the time you're playing on a hash. You're not always playing in the middle of the field. Very rarely are you always in the middle. So in my thought process is, if we can run a short combination out here and a wide combination where we get one of our athletes the ball, then beautiful. Then that kind of sets you up. You can run a quick bubble, and again, you're running QB ISO theory. So if this is taken up and he's out there, fantastic. Because now you got, you have the numbers game here where you have 7 against their 6. So it works out wonderfully if you're able to, if that Sam is taken off by the E, especially if you throw that a couple times and that Sam has to widen. Now you have the numbers game where your quarterback is up off to the strong safety, assuming these guys do their jobs. Everyone's still got to execute. So again, having the RPO game kind of throws something new into it as far as running ISO. So that's kind of the nice part about it. And again, you can still run it from under center, from pistol. So, you could easily run it from under center and still have it look in a spread look. You can still run it out of that formation if you like being under center more, and you still have the RPO game out of that. Because again, if they're still in that 4-man front, you still have that. Now granted, depending on their front, if they're in a true cover 2 look, that slant is there, depending on what this free safety is doing. Now, if they rotate everybody down and move everybody, and that rotate that strong safety down, and they bring in the Sam linebacker, and they kind of move everybody out, might be a little bit more difficult, because now they might be running more of a 4-4 look, depending on which way they rotate. I would say most teams want to keep their linebackers in, because linebackers, that's what they want them for. They want their linebackers in, so I would assume most teams would rotate their safety down to the field, but you never know. You might get more of where it looks more like this kind of look for whatever reason. Again, you don't know. Kind of depends on how they rotate. They rotate down, you might get more of that look. In that case, yeah, your slant's not really there. And again, that could be the strong safety or free safety. In any case, it's a safety to some degree, no matter who it might be, just to make it easy. Because some of you be like, well, I wouldn't put my free safety down there. I'd like my free safety in the middle of the field. That's fine. That's fair. So I'd like my free safety in the middle of the field too. I want my strong safety down to help with run support. So in any case, yeah, you could run it out of this front and out of this look as well. And you still have that RPO game depending on what these safeties are doing to the backside or the short side. And same thing on this side as well, depending on what these outside guys are doing. If they're cheating in, you could have that bubble theory and still have a slant theory on the backside. And if this safety is in a true cover 2 look and they're backed off, that looks really nice. Don't even hand it off. Take a step, 1, 2, throw and go. So again, having the RPOs really adds something to it. And formation-wise, it works out really nice. The same thing, now looking at a little bit of odd front. We didn't get a lot of odd front last year, so I haven't tinkered with it a lot. But just thinking about, okay, fine, give me some odd front. Let's go. Let's just start out again in a cover 2 look, and I'll show a little bit of a cover 3 look. But I truly feel like in a cover 2 look, the nice thing about it is if you're running QB ISO, again, you can still have your RPO theory. Depending on how you like to run it, you can still do slant out, you can do bubbles, however you want to do it. You can do smoke screens if you want, or key screens, where he's coming out on the corner, he's taking a step and coming back to pan. But if it's cover 2, that's a hard sell. If it's cover 2 over here, bubble's probably a little bit easier because now you got a block. So if you want to do a key screen, you can do that, or you can try into a bubble, or again, you have your slant and out theory. And again, I'm just giving you basic as basic gets. Not going to get too into it because again, there's multi-combinations you can do based on coverages. That's kind of the idea now with the RPO game. You can actually go down the field and run some verticals, you know, run things like that. So again, but as far as basic gets, you still have your RPO theory here, and you can run that by reading these outside backers. These outside backers, if they're cheating outside, because they want to account for the RPO game because you've thrown it a couple times. Well, now again, now you got 7 on 5. So, and depending on what these tackles are doing, all your offensive tackles have to do is make sure they get inside. You have basically a 3-man block to the backside backer on the will, lead up, follow when you're off to the races. So, and then as they cheat, again, you can play games with that as those backers try to cheat. And that's quarterback ISO. And then obviously if you bring somebody in, you're going to bring a backer in. So if we brought our H-back, which is most likely what we would do, we brought our H-back over because again, he's a tight end type, so we could try to turn him into more of a fullback type. Now again, also, there's some play action thought process here because now essentially you have the ability to have 3 receivers out of this. You have that trick up your sleeve, but again, still, there's your stud or Sam or whatever you want to call him. So now you have that game where it's like, okay, is this rover or that weak side outside linebacker, is he going to be cheating down or is he going to be playing off? Because now you have that game as well. Depending on if it's cover 2, you can run that slant theory, and if he's just pinching and pinching and pinching, catch and throw. Especially if you catch it and you see he's coming off, throw it. So you can play that game. And then as you keep throwing that, he's going to have to back off. So now he's going to have to wait, make sure you don't throw that anymore because now he's going to be, getting yelled at all the time. Or they switch into that cover 3 look, and now he's down and they're just bringing him off, and now you have that take it up. And now that's where you get into, you can still run QB ISO, and you can have the H blocking back and leading QB ISO up top to kind of account for that. That's something I thought about as we were playing games with this in my head. Like, okay, well, if I'm running a 3-4, I'm just going to come down and do a cover 3 look, and you're not going to be able to play games with my rover because now my rover is going to be able to just come off the ball, and I got 4 people coming. Okay, fine. On the snap of the ball, boom, he comes, cut across. You have a kick out block, basically. Fullback leads up on the mic. You got the nose and everybody leading up on that will. Just don't get beat inside, don't get beat inside. Now you have QB ISO going again. Or, like I said before, you can do it and play games with it out of motion. So, depending on what you want to do here, I was also thinking about motioning him down inside versus the H. So again, playing games, motion him down in. He starts shuffling. You have the down block, yeah, he's going to come in a little bit. And again, that could be the read now on the front side, where if he comes down in, you have the slant. Now also out of this one, remember this is my wide side of the field, and if it's cover 2 or cover 3, if it's cover 2, this could be a nice little, okay, fine, you want to play cover 2? Well, now the Z knows it's cover 2, corners up, go ahead and run, a little bit of fade, catch, and go ahead and throw it. Force that safety to try to get you, especially to the wide side of the field. And again, we can tag that. So again, little games you can play to kind of keep these defenders honest. But in any case, going back to just the ISO theory, bringing the E inside, having him shuffle down. Now normally he's more of our fly sweep guy, which kind of fits with this. So we're running fly sweep. Now this would be running into the boundary, which is fine. I don't mind running fly sweep into the boundary. Holding everybody inside, snap it right as he gets here, comes up, lead up. And as he's coming off, he should not get there. Now, of course, especially unless he's blitzing. If he's blitzing, he might get there. But again, if he's that far out wide and he's not motioning down inside that fast, should be able to beat it up the gut. So, playing some games in that front. Now, that's out of a pistol look. Also played with it out of a double tight look. And again, still running it out of pistol. Still having fun with it. Again, like I said, I enjoy ISO theories. Now for us, this would be our double tight look. So we bring our tight ends up. Still in pistol. Essentially, it's the same formation. The only thing I did is I collapsed everybody down. That's all I did. So, not really understanding or really knowing, because obviously we're not going up against any defense. Again, if this is the field side, our adjustment, when I coached defense, our adjustment was to go to what we call check head. And this is exactly what we did, basically, is everyone just kind of lined up, head up, for the most part, in a four-man front. So, now, here's where it gets kind of fun to some degree, depending on what these kinds of players are. Now, usually, this 3-tech is supposed to be your best defensive player, your best defensive lineman as far as a run stopper on the inside, usually. Now, in high school, is that always the case? I mean, not necessarily. You might not have a really good 3-tech. Your 1-tech might be your better player. Me, personally, as a center, I'm thinking in high school, if I can disrupt the center and if I can shove him back, I'd rather prefer that than the 3-tech. That's me. Some of you might argue, Freeman, that makes absolutely no sense. You're an idiot. No, you need to have a really powerful 3-tech. Me, if I have a powerful 1-tech, because 9 times out of 10, who are they double teaming? They really want to double team that 1-tech backside. And that's also how you're setting up your down blocks, how you're setting up your traps, your pulls, all that stuff. So, to me, I'd always either want a really good 1-tech versus if I had to pick, I'd rather have a really good 1-tech or a really good 0-tech to really push that center and disrupt the snap if I can. Again, that's coming from me as I played as a center. And that's always kind of what I've made my focus on when I coach defensive line. I always try to really coach up where we would play games. If we were running a 4-3, I'd tilt him sometimes. I'd put him over him sometimes. Just play games as much as I possibly could. So, in any case, if you want to run double tights, now your center gets to kind of play games and really make some interesting calls here. Now, of course, if we want to run, to the field side, we want to run, ISO right, however we want to call it. Whether it's 22 or 20 or 21 or 23, if we want to go into these gaps, if we want to go to this gap, if this guy's not a very good player, he's not their strongest D tackle, leave him alone, double team backside. If he's a really good player, double team the front side, leave him alone. Let the center make the call, or let the center and guards figure it out. As far as who is the better tackle, and be like, okay, well, if he's the better, we want to double team the better player. And we want to say, no, we want to make sure our backside guard or frontside guard handles him on his own. Now, some people might say, well, if we want to run this side, he's just got to make the block, and these guys got to go there. But the interesting part is when you bring these guys down, you now have an interesting double team on this side. So you can really play games and really force a double team on either side. And your quarterback and tailback would just have to know if you're running QB ISO, you just got to know that, okay, well, if they're calling Ray Big, Rick Big, Luke Big, Laser Big, whatever they're calling, so if it's going to go this way, even though we want to run ISO right, well, now I just got to understand that my hole might not be here, it might be more right up the center towards the middle backer. And then if it's the opposite, if they're calling that Luke kind of call, or Liz, or whatever you want to call it, then it might be more true in the gap versus up the center's butt. So that would just be something they would have to understand and read, and that's one thing we always talk about with our running backs is read the lineman's butt. Wherever the lineman butt points, that's where you want to go. So, and that's always a big key thing with running backs is that we always tell them wherever that lineman's butt is pointing, that's where you want to go. Follow the butt. So that's kind of how we've taught that, and that's an interesting way to do it out of a pistol and run QB ISO with double tight to give you a longer surface and get yourself 3 double teams and only have to worry about one-on-one block running QB ISO. So that's kind of the nice thing I've always thought is like if I have a quarterback and I got a tailback that can lead up on that Mike backer, and if I can get 2 outside double teams and I only have to worry about one-on-one block besides my lead up block, I'll take that. That'll be fun. So that was just one thought, again, as I kind of pieced this together and looked at it and really kind of made some rules as far as what I want my ISO game to look like. So we can go double tights, we can go pistol, we can go pistol with a fullback and run true. Now again, same thing here. Now we can bring more of a full house look to this. And again, the more guys you bring in, the more they're going to bring in. So now you can have this front, still have the same idea, but now of course, you know, we usually teach our corners to go 6x2. So he'd be 6 yards and 2 yards off of the Z or the X on this in this regard. So if we want to bring that, because again, I kind of want to have, if we're the field side, I'd usually do that. Now at the same time, my X is supposed to be my best receiver. So it kind of depends on what we're playing games with. I might leave my X there and then still have my H here, and this would now be my Z. Now granted, personnel-wise, it's not going to be my Z. It's going to be another tight end, or it's going to be a fullback or something like that. That wouldn't be my actual Z. But in any case, so this would probably be more what I would actually, truly, honestly run to the field side, because now, again, I could have quick pitch. We could run power out of this, and we have the field side over here. And then we can run ISO, we can run trap, we can run all kinds of crazy things out of all this, and having a double tight look and a longer edge. So it just gives me another avenue to really get after it. So again, you could have those double teams, which works out really nice, because all we did was bring in a corner, and let's be honest, corners are the last line of defense. So not really going to be a run threat or a run protector. So we got to worry about the end and the Sam. We got to worry about the Mike. We got to worry about these three right here, but I have these three to figure out these two. They got to figure out who's double teaming. And then I got these two for these two. So everybody's accounted for. And now I get an extra fullback who gets to lead up on the mic, and now my tailback gets to follow up, depending on where that call comes from. And that's just where they got to follow everything else. Because again, he might have to adjust his track if for some reason this guy's the better tackle, if they call a head front, if they line up head up. They got to make that call, and then that Z might be more kind of coming right up the center's butt. Same thing here. And then obviously making a move depending on how the Z, even though it really is going to be a fullback in that regard, makes the block on the mic. And that'd be a personnel grouping where it's like, hey, we're gonna go heavy, we're gonna go heavy, and the Z, he needs to be a tight end or a fullback type. So that could be some things that we could play with pretty easy on that front. So that'd be a double tight look. Now, depending, again, and it makes it easier to be quite honest with you if they don't check head. That's what I used to do as a defensive coordinator. That's what we used to do in our defense. If we got double tights, you might still get people that are like, hey, that's the wide side of the field. So, nope, wide side, that's how we're going to adjust. So the ends / the backers or whoever that might be. So you might have an end here. You might have a tackle and a nose and another end right there. And the Sam and the Mike and the Will might still be right there. And they might just rotate a safety down and go to a 4-4 look, a 4-4 cover 3 basic look like that. If they do that, now your job has been made really easy, because now again you have the extra blockers, and these guys are far and away outside. They got to somehow collapse. So now that end just has to make sure the end isn't beach inside. You have two double teams again. The nice thing is that's straight up. You actually have a third double team here if you really want it. And this guy can't come off, so if he rotates down, the H goes. So this would be the only tricky one for you if you're running QB ISO, because now you still have this nice lead up the gut on the mic. Quarterback follows. So again, the end just can't get beat inside. And then if this Sam backer is for some reason showing, you got two options. Again, like I had said, if the Sam backer lines up down here and this safety lines up down here, let's just say they want to give you a 6-2 look because they're like, well, okay, if they're going to line up like that, we're going to line up like we're going to run. Well, then now you can do one of two things. Obviously, your line can make a simple call, and everybody basically just blocks out for the most part. He'll block out. He'll block out. He won't get beat inside. You still have a double team here, and he'll block out. So everyone just basically fan blocks and goes out. And you can also still have, again, in this cover, if this is cover 3, and he's going to line up down there, you still have the slant, and you still have the slants. So your quarterback can make the adjustment, be like, okay, if these guys are going to line up like that, especially on the field side, because let's just say this is the hash, he's going to line up on the, basically the middle of the field. In theory, if this is the hash, he'd be more towards the middle of the field out here. So 1, 2, 3, slant, especially if this is cover 3, he's got to bail And if he's run reacting, catch and throw. And you got a nice little area here to complete an easy pass and get, at least 4 yards if the Z can't break it. Boundary side a little bit trickier, especially if the safety is more of a pass pro guy first. He might sit back, he might be lining up there, and if your H takes a step, he might come down. Again, your X is your better receiver, but at the same time, looking at leverage, if they're going to condense down into a 6-2, take that all day. You got catch, 1, 2, and throw. Catch, 1, 2, and throw, and you're golden. So, again, RPOs add another little level to it. So, looking at this again, whether it's, if we want to bring that Z in, okay, we bring him in, we're going to go more of a full house look. Again, depending on what they do. Corner is going to be 6x2, at least that's what we teach. I don't know, that's what I've taught, that's what we usually teach. Again, could change, and then depending on the safety, if he's up or if he's back, kind of depends, kind of changes things on that front. Same thing with the Sam, if he's out here, could be a 4-4 look. So, but out of this, again, same thing, especially if they give you the angles, you could still have, depending on what this 3-tech is, you could have a double team here to the Sam, or double that 3, if that 3 is a bad son of a gun, double the 1 to the backside will, have a double on this end, force him back, get off to safety, and then make sure that end doesn't beat you inside. And now you have a lead up and you're following. And again, if they want to rotate this guy down, then it just, again, it turns into an out block. He's going to block out, he's going to block out, he's going to block out. Still leading up. Same thing on the other side if he rotates down. Now again, if he rotates down, you have that RPO on the backside. So you have that read. If he rotates down and that X gets open, you have that throw. Yet again, especially when they see this would be a run-heavy formation. Most people, when you see this, you're going to think, okay, they're going to run the ball, run heavy, run heavy, run heavy. Now, you can or you don't have to. Again, you have that RPO backside if you really want. So attaching these little pre-snap, post-snap things works out really nice. So there's your double team look, and there's your double tight look. So we went through pistol, we went through tight end, the old school tight end look. We went through spread, whether you're in pistol or whether you want to bring a tailback in. Now one thing, just playing with it, one thing we ran a few years ago when I was the JV head coach, we ran a joker formation or a diamond formation. So a la good old Dallas Cowboys. And again, I'm just going to use our terms just to make life easy. So, like this would have been one of our fronts. Now before we had a tight end all the time, so we had a tight end. But if playing with this, again, having some fun with it. You can run QB ISO, you can run regular ISO, you can run power, you can run counter, you can run veer, you can run triple option. There's so many things you can run out of this front. Now again though, you run into just the basics of, okay, what are they lining up in, and do we have the correct rules to block it? So, the more people you bring in, the more people they bring in. So you might have this key front right here, especially if it's a cover 2 look. So, again, you're trying to run ISO. It all depends on what these guys do. You have a big on big block, backside block. Now you could also do some tricky things where he's here, kick him out, don't get beat inside. Kind of has the looks of power, but at the same time, it's an ISO theory. We're isolating the middle backer, and we're leading up the hole with the H. The E's just blocking the end, so now we get 2 interior double teams. Little games like that. And again, same thing. You can even take it one step further if you really want, and don't even block that the front side end at all. Don't even block him. Sorry, trying to make sure you guys get the nice little looks here. Using my black marker so much it's starting to die out on me. But in any case, you don't even have to block him. right? We don't have to. We don't want to, especially if we want to run kind of like an outside veer look here. So you get an automatic double team here, double team to the backside there. Your E leads up, right? E would lead up. If he pinches down, all your H does is become the option guy. You pull, and now you have option theory. So you can not block him, run the ISO theory, but then turn it into, again, it's more of an outside veer than an ISO theory, but at the same time, I like the idea of it's an ISO theory if this end does his job and sits. But he just blocked himself because we're leading up, we're isolating the middle backer, we're leading up on him, and we're going. So I know there might be some argument of, well, Jeff, that's just, an outside veer game. That's not an ISO theory. In my eyes, it is because I'm isolating that middle backer. The only thing I'm doing is I'm adapting it to this year's modern thing where we want to really have some read game. So I'm kind of meshing the ISO theory with the veer theory. So I'm meshing it a little bit just to add a little nuance. Because this end's going to used to get blocked. Now all of a sudden he doesn't get blocked. He's going to think we screwed up. So, and if this end is a bad son of a gun, let him, no matter what he does, he's wrong. He pinches hard, pull it and go. He comes upfield, all right, we're just going to run ISO right underneath you. So, again, playing little games, and you can still run power, you can still run counter, you can still run everything you want out of that. You can still run fly sweep out of it if you really wanted to. I know somebody's like, well, wait, how are you going to run fly sweep? So, fly sweep, if I want to do that, I would have to make a shift, which is fine. I don't mind having to make shifts. So we would just shift the H out. So obviously you line up in this normal formation here, run a shift, have him come out onto the line, have your X back off and run fly sweep. So you just run a shift if you want to run fly sweep out of it, but at least you get them thinking you're sitting here, and that's one thing I'm playing with more is shifts, and it's just shifts and motions, adding shifts with motions. So now if we line up in Joker and we say, shift to twins, or however we want to call it, just shift, H shift, he shifts here, and then X comes across, and we run our fly sweep. It's almost like split back fly sweep anyway, and now we got fly sweep. So, again, piecing things together so it all looks the same, but having options. So, again, playbook, everything's open, everything's there. So we're sitting here, we're good to go, and then if they wanted to go with the odd front, okay, they want to go odd front on you, cover 2, we'll just, again, I just start off in cover 2 and then rotate down to cover 3. But in any case, again, you can try to do the same thing to some degree depending on what you want to make a call. You can have one of these guys block back, leading up the hole. You can out block the front side depending on what that sandbacker is doing. You can out block here, get a double to the backside, lead up, and then your H can kick block back to help out. If the sandbacker's playing off, then obviously you don't have to bother with that. You can run double teams. So again, it all depends on what they align in. But obviously we want to get double teams, we want to get triple teams. So, and then if they were to line up in a cover 3 look, say they rotate down, rotate a safety down. So they rotated a safety down. Okay. Again, not much truly changes for you. Except for, yeah, one of these guys is for sure coming. So again, usually wherever the safety rotates down, that's where they're going to bring pressure from. So if you know where these two safeties are, and that's something you teach your quarterback, if they rotate this way, then obviously most likely one of these two, if not both of them, are coming. So obviously, again, if they both come, that could be a little bit of a trick. But if he's lining up backed off and he's coming from depth, at least that gives you a chance to pop one up underneath. So I mean, if he walks all the way up, and now all of a sudden he's up on the line, well, again, we teach our linemen, like, okay, hey, you don't like, color across your face or opposite color across your face, how you want to take that. And then what could essentially happen here is you still have this double team here to the backside. We're there. Now everyone's just big, manned up, and it just kind of moves to the outside. depending on who's coming. So, could widen, could do things like that. So, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, be great, push limits, hold the line.